hear 3,000 thrown around a lot, but there's not that many cars that actually do it. Everything I've gone after, I end up going to the extreme. Growing up, I wasn't into cars. I was actually into bikes. I worked at a bike shop when I was 15 years old. When I turned 16, I got a car. That car was a way to get to cooler places to ride my bike. And then about 17, my friends started getting into cars and started racing here and there. And I'm like, wait a second, this kind of looks interesting. I bought a Honda Civic. My friend had a Honda Civic SI. I bought a Honda Civic DX. I bought that one because it was an automatic and I didn't know how to drive a 5-speed. I didn't realize how much slower they were until we raced. Sold that, bought an Integra, a little bit of money left over, and I went to Jotech and I said, you know, I need intake header, exhaust, springs, go home, put all the stuff on, and come back the next day. He was like, wait, you put all that stuff on yourself? I was like, yeah. He goes, do you want a job? I was like, yeah. So I'm in high school at the time. So I started working at Jotech. I didn't know anything about anything, just had a mechanical sense and could look at something and go, okay, well, you're gonna put this spring on here, this is how it needs to go. When I started tuning, it was adjustable fuel pressure regulators and cam gears, right? You kind of can't go wrong. If you got a dyno, you just mess with it until things work. And so I got to learn all this starting from nothing when everybody was starting from nothing. And you know, it progressed through there. I worked at Jotech for 7 years, and then Bob Norwood came along. We were working with Bob Norwood when we went methanol on Kenny's drag car. We worked with him for about a year, and then he was like, I want you to come work for me and build race cars. So we were building tube chassis stuff at his shop. So I did that. I worked there for a couple of years, built a full tube chassis, front-wheel drive Honda by myself. A couple of years into that, Ben Strader from EFI University came in town, and he's like, you need to do your own thing. He's like, it's time. And that was the push that made it happen. 2005, I started T1. I was still doing Honda stuff and things that, you know, I knew the market. The Honda stuff grew. I had a guy that had a race car that he wasn't getting the results he wanted. He asked me to drive it at one point. I went out and drove it. We went, it was an Acura Integra. I ran a 10-1, the first event, which was the fastest in Texas at the time. And I was like, this is fun. And he goes, I want you to keep driving the car. I was like, all right, if I'm gonna do that, we need to do some more stuff. I was like, I'll do the labor, you pay for the parts. We did it. We ended up first front-wheel drive street car in Texas to run a 9-second pass. Later won the NHRA Sport Compact Series for sport front-wheel drive, and then went on to be the first front-wheel drive street car in the 8s with that car in 2008. In 2010, I bought my GTR. I had zero intention of working on them. I just thought it was such an awesome car, and I could finally afford one. We go to race events, I've got the race car, and I just bring the GTR to park it, and then people start coming by like, oh, can you work on GTRs? I'm like, of course we can. It's just a car. So quickly learned that there was more money in the GTR market than the Honda market. So started to shift things that direction. By 2011 or 12, we were exclusive GTR, and we were up until about 2020. We use Motec ECUs in everything that we do. We're the biggest Motec dealer in the United States. Motec came out with a plug-and-play kit for the Huracan and the R8. I had customers that wanted to buy them. I support all my customers. I have not worked on one of these cars. I haven't tuned one of these cars, anything. So it seemed like a good excuse to buy an R8 to learn this car. Bought an R8, put the Motec on there, stock, naturally aspirated stock motor, just to learn everything. My customers started asking, so you're working on R8s now? That snowballed into, okay, well, I guess I'll turbocharge mine. Went turbocharged, stock motor, ended up with stock motor record at one point, and then built the motor, and then it ended up with the R8 record at one point, and now we're building a crazy GT4 R8 for drag racing. So everything just kind of snowballs. In my opinion, you have to have your own car to do the development work on. The people that want to get into the market and don't invest and do it that way and use the customers for development, it never works. Because of how we did it, and just doing things right and always trying to further things, it allowed us to offer customers packages that were proven and that were reliable. On the same token, everybody's been to a shop where you've been burned and you've had problems. We have great customer service. These guys, a lot of them have been with me, the customers have been with me for 10 years. They don't want to leave. And so that's why when we start working on V10s, they're like, oh, we can finally do something new. I think just always trying to be the best we can at whatever the market is. And you can't work on a bunch of different cars and do that. You have to focus. There's enough that want to do things right to keep us busy. That's all that matters to me. So in 2015, this car set the GTR half-mile record. We went 235.6. Fast forward a little bit. So Billy's car is a car that came to us to be built just for roll racing. Everybody else is drag racing. At the biggest roll race of the year, which is TX2K, it's annihilated everything out there. That thing's gone 237 miles an hour. I have no question it has the potential to have the half-mile world record. And then drag racing, it's been one thing after another, but George's car has run 651. It's the quickest R35 at the moment. My car, when it went 690 in 2018, I think it was like maybe the fourth or fifth car to run a 6. We've been a part of, we do a lot of engines. Alpha Logic has gone very fast to Dubai using our engines. So there's just been a lot through the years. So George's car had gone, I think 660 something all-wheel drive. He is very on board with getting the car as light as possible. And so we're looking at it going, I don't need the front drive by, say, third gear. And the front wheels are barely on the ground first and second. So can it go faster if we drop 200 pounds by removing all the front drive stuff, putting a spindle mount front wheel setup? That was the question. So we tried it. Well, the problem with this car in general is the DCT transmission. We have limited control over the clutch. We can't optimize the gear ratios for what would be ideal. Obviously, there's Supras, there's all kinds of guys with an automatic trans and a 275 radial cutting 1 60 foots. We couldn't get there. I think we went like a couple 124 60 foots, and the 330s were way down from what it would do all-wheel drive. But we still did end up going 651 at 230 rear-wheel drive. Still a GR6, we just didn't have the front drive stuff on there. We talked about it and said, let's go back. We can't get the short track back where it was. The car's making more power now than it ever did before when it was all-wheel drive. So put those two pieces together, I think we can go fast. Night Fury, which is George's all-wheel drive car, he has been stuck on keeping that full chassis. There's nothing cut on that chassis. It's got carbon quarter panels and whatnot, but it's not Swiss cheese. There's no tube frame going on back there. It's just bolt-in Verkline subframes, which all these cars have. So he wanted to keep that car that. And then this other car was owned by a previous customer of ours. Wanted to go the route that I did and just make it rear-wheel drive, big tire, get rid of a transmission that's not supposed to take 3,000 horsepower, and put something that should go down the track a bunch of times in a row. Snowballed from, okay, we want to back half it. It needs to have a proper amount of cage for potentially a high 5-second car. Well, by that point, there's no point in keeping any sheet metal from the firewall back. And since we're not racing in any particular class, we're just building a car for fun, there's no reason to keep the firewall and the front frame rails and whatnot. It's rear-wheel drive. That car's got a TH400, exact same engine and turbo setup as Night Fury. Now it's probably 350 pounds lighter than Night Fury, same power, 400, big tire. I mean, it should go bottom 6 pretty easy once we get it all sorted. There's a long future, I think, in the V10s, and there's a lot of people wanting to build them now. The GTR's old technology in comparison for the trans, the engine, everything. So most of our GTR stuff now, the race car stuff has slowed in progression significantly, but now the past few builds we've done have been people that just want like a really awesome street car, and they've bought like newer Nismos, so we get to start from a stock car that's the best version of it to drive, and build these 1,500-1,600 horsepower, just all around awesome street cars. I like that. The GTR stuff's slowing and the V10 stuff's growing. All right, so you wanna go see the shop? All right, so this is the engine room. This is where all the magic happens. On average, 1 engine a week comes out of here. This is a VR38 that's going in a customer's car. This one's kind of an interesting deal. This is a Nismo GT3 engine that goes in a Daytona prototype car. It's a retired car that the new owners wanted to make a lot more power than it made when it raced for IMSA. So this is something that we've been a part of. It's been a really neat project. It's very different from our normal VR38, and that integrated dry sump and billet covers and whatnot. That's been pretty cool. So this room is just kind of storage for the engines waiting to go together. We work with a local machine shop that we worked with for almost 25 years now. Does all of our machine work, does our short block assembly and our cylinder head assembly, and then things come back to us to be final assembled here. This room here that we do product photography in, when I bought the building, this was a strange small office that we were trying to figure out what to make use of. Works out good. So we've got this little backdrop here, all the product photos here, 3D printer for whatever development pieces we need to do. This is actually a machine that spits out the electrical connectors prepackaged for the injector dynamics injectors. So it's a vibratory machine that we tell it we need sets of 4, spits out 4 connectors, 4 terminals, 4 seals, and packages them and seals them. This has been a huge time saver. This was basically a full-time job for a single person before the machine, so that's been great. It's the sales office, so we've got sales guys hang out in here. And then the shop. So we manufacture a lot of products here. We do all the injector dynamic stuff here. This is where all of our line kits are made, fuel systems, catch can systems, anything like that. Some inventory over here. These guys are all working the injector dynamics assembly stuff. Some wiring harnesses and whatnot being made for some of the products that we offer. So we talked about the GT4, the new race car that we're building. So the GT4 is an Audi built non-road legal car, but it's built specifically for road racing. Comes with a really, really nice FIA cage, fire system. Mechanically, it's the same as far as engine and driveline goes, except it's rear wheel drive, got a lot of aero things, a lot of cooling, but we are turning it into a drag car instead. Normally on these cars, the turbos are, in back where the muffler is. We are taking advantage of weight distribution and moving the turbos forward. So they're going to feed from the side pods. Intercoolers are up front, nice and low. This thing will remain rear wheel drive and just for drag racing. So we'll see where that takes us. This is an STO that we're building that's just for road racing. So we don't do a ton of road race stuff. Most of our guys opt for drag racing. This guy has 2 drag race cars already, so he wanted a road race toy. This is our production turbo kit, 68mm turbos. It's going to be set up for a max of around 1,200 horsepower right now. We'll see how much it can actually make use of at the track, and we'll go from there. This is actually his other car that is a drag car. So this car's gone 7.6 so far, hoping to better that this Sunday. We're going out with it. It makes about 2,500 horsepower. This is all-wheel drive, still full street car in this thing. This is a Porsche GT3 RS. We don't do a ton of Porsche stuff, but we do some aero and some suspension and minor upgrades. This one's getting a Veris Engineering rear wing kit and a full front splitter kit. That was pretty neat. This black car is a new Nismo that we're starting a build on. That one will make about 1,600 horsepower. Again, full street car, that one will be fun. This is a Huracan that we just finished up. This one makes 2,200 horsepower. Should run a 770, 760 or so. This is Night Terror, the other car that we talked about. The big tire rear wheel drive TH400 car. You can see inside here, it looks a little different than a normal GTR. This one's a big tire, 4-link TH400, exact same engine as Night Fury. So we're hoping low 6s, high 5s when this one gets us sorted. And then over here we've got the fabrication area, the mainline 3,000 horsepower hub dyno. Wheel and tire assembly, we sell a lot of wheels and tires. If you order a set of Bellic wheels and tires, they ship within a couple days instead of 4 weeks like most companies. So, and then back here we've got more stuff. When we're doing engine and transmissions in these cars, there's some downtime when they're apart. And so we have to have some work with cars. So these are just cars that are waiting on either engine or transmission or in line to get some work done. So let's check out the GT4. Wade here is actually working on the headers for that. So this will be a little bit different than a normal turbocharged V10. These cars being so rear weight biased, they tend to wheelie easily. As the car gets lighter, which this car is lighter than a normal GT4, it's just gonna get worse. And so one of the ways to prevent wheelies is to move the weight as far forward and as far down as you can. Keep center of gravity low and forward. And that's what we're doing here. So instead of the turbos being up high and back here, they're gonna be up here with the intercoolers down here. So that moves a lot of the mass forward and down. The turbos will have a nice feed that comes through the side air ducts. This car will remain rear wheel drive, which is how it comes from Audi. We have a whole brake conversion kit that'll go on there from Verkline that allows fitment of a 15-inch wheel so we can get a proper drag race tire. We're gonna have our new billet engine in it, the best of the best that you can do in the trans, which so far has been holding the power. This is still gonna be new territory for us. I expect this thing to ultimately make over 3,000 horsepower, but it won't need that yet. We need to get some things sorted. These things are neat. They've got air jacks from the factory, which is cool. You bring it in the pits and you hook it up to a nitrogen bottle and the car just lifts up. So you're not dealing with jacks or quick jacks or anything like that. Aero-wise, this car has a front splitter. The main radiator is in the center. It's got a big duct where it comes through the hood. So we're gonna retain all that. We don't need a ton of cooling because it's gonna be a methanol drag car. Just that radiator, and removing all the other cooling things is what allowed us the room to put the turbos up there, because normally there's side pod radiators. So we got rid of that. But this thing's gonna be really neat, really excited about this. Over to my right, we've got kind of the street version. This car is a full street car, no amenities removed, anything like that. You wouldn't believe these things make over 2,200 horsepower driving them. They're not too loud because the engine and exhaust are behind you. The clutch and the transmission drives just like a stock car. You'd have no idea the transmission and the clutch will hold 2,500 horsepower. The turbos are responsive. They've got an incredibly wide power band. They rev to 9,500 RPM and they're making good power before 6,000. So you've got just a ton of power all the time. Take one of these cars, put some wheels and tires on it. This is a 760 car as it sits right now. We build a lot of these cars. We manufacture a lot of parts for these cars. Whatever your platform is, if it's something that we can help you with, either with parts, technical assistance, or full builds, you can reach us on the phone, on the internet, t1racedevelopment.com, T1 Race on social media. We're everywhere. We're easy to get a hold of, and you won't have a problem getting somebody to answer the phone if you call.